if Kristen comes back and we can actually hear her.
Here she is. Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody tonight to our February town board meeting. Before we get started, ask everybody to stand up. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, Pledge Allegiance. Come on, do the flag. United States of America. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty for all. Okay, thank you. Okay, so with us tonight, we have our town board, Steve Moreau, Sylvia Santiago, Steve Bedetti. We have our town attorney, Dave Zagon. We have Kristen O'Donnell with us from Lankin Tully. We also have our town clerk. And our most important person, we have Danielle from our IT department. Thank you, Danielle. Okay, so the first order of business tonight is a public hearing that we're going to repeal and rescind a local law 5, the year 2000. It had to do with towing. There was a towing law in effect for the town where we regulated the folks that did our towing. And for some reason, it fell by the wayside. So when I got here, I spoke to the police chief and the town board, and we have been putting together a new one. So this public hearing that we're opening now is if anybody wants to discuss the fact that we're repealing and rescinding this, but just know that in the next couple of minutes, we're going to adopt a new one. So if anybody wants to comment, we'll hold up for a minute or so. I didn't think there'd be anybody to comment on this. Okay, so Chair Lynn, tenant motion, town board, town of Windsor, close the public hearing regarding the adoption of local law entitled a local law to repeal and rescind local law 5-2000 of the town code of town of Windsor entitled towing, including any or all amendments thereto. Motion?
Move.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Moreau,
Yes.
Councilman Bedetti,
Yes.
Councilman Santiago,
Yes.
Supervisor Myers.
Yes. Okay, that's that. Now we'll have a public hearing regarding the adoption of a new town local law for the towing. And this has been put together, this project's been going on for probably 9-10 months. With the some town folks have been helping put this together, and I would miss not acknowledging the help from our town attorney, Dave Zagon, our paralegal, Jess, the police chief, Robert Dawes, and Stephen Bedetti, councilman and chief dispatcher. So just a comment or two. We have had the folks who have been on our towing list before, towing operators, in to take some input from them to see as to what they liked or didn't like about this. So we have taken comments from just about everybody. And now I'll open up the public. And the reason for this towing law is pretty simple. Just the fact that we will regulate the cost and the things that happen when we dispatch a towing company. If they're going their own, it's whatever the market will bear. However, we are regulating when we dispatch them from our police department. So that being said, we'll kind of open up for any public comments for a minute and see if anybody has anything to say. I think we have covered a lot of ground in this particular local law, and we've gone back and forth many times, many meetings. And I think there was even some comments as of yesterday. So we have put a lot of work into this, and hopefully this will not go by the wayside again, because it's important that people understand that we are regulated when we send somebody out there. So anybody? Councilor Lynn, Danielle? No? Okay. Chair Lynn, tenant motion, town board, town of Windsor, close the public hearing regarding the adoption of local law entitled towing local law of the town of Windsor. Motion?
Move.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Moreau,
Yes.
Councilman Bedetti,
Yes.
Councilwoman Santiago,
Yes.
Supervisor Myers.
Yes. That's that. Chair will entertain a motion, Town Board, Town of Windsor, after considering all of the information presented to it, hereby declare the proposed local law entitled Towing Local Law of the Town of Windsor will not have a significant impact on the environment, and thus authorize the supervisor to execute Part 3 of the SEAF, adopt a negative declaration, hereby adopt the attached proposed local law entitled Towing Local Law of the Town of Windsor in accordance with the resolution annexed here too. Motion?
Move.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Moreau,
Yes.
Councilman Bedetti,
Yes.
Councilwoman Santiago,
Yes.
Supervisor Myers.
Yes, okay, so now we have,
Supervisor Myers,
yes,
Supervisor, I just wanted to make sure we still have to do the motion to repeal and rescind the old local law, the old towing law, excuse me.
did I run by that?
Yeah, you missed
So,
that.
Yeah, we made the motion to close the public hearing. That was it.
Yeah.
we didn't. Huh. Do I have that motion here?
Let me know if you don't, I'll run it up.
No, I just have where we are closing the public hearing that local law, local, let me see if I can catch or something else. No, I don't have it.
All right, just give me a sec, I'll run it up to you.
Okay. Get that from Dave, he's gonna give you something. Okay. Oh, thanks. Okay, is Dave back in the seat? Not yet. All right, listen, Dave, we did this last motion had to do with the environmental quality review and adopting the local law. It was both. You read into hereby adopt the attached proposed local law entitled,
They were separate, George.
no, what I had them, this is, what you gave me is pretty much the same thing that I'm looking at here.
They're very similar.
Okay.
Not exactly the same.
Motion, Town Board, Town of Windsor, after considering all the information presented to it, hereby declare the proposed local law entitled Towing Local Law, Town of Windsor will not have a significant impact on the environment, and thus authorize the supervisor to execute Part 3 of SEAF and adopt the negative declaration hereby attach proposed local law entitled Towing Local Law, Town of Windsor, in accordance with the resolution annexed here too. Okay.
George, so you're right, George?
Huh?
Those are the same?
Yeah.
I gave you the wrong one. Hang on. Sorry, I'm getting my exercise tonight.
It's messed up. What do you say?
I think we should have video footage of the hallway, him running right now.
Yeah. You don't have it. You gave me the same thing I had. It's all right. This sounds like it's going to be a long night anyway, so hang on. Okay. This is the thing we want to do. Okay, it's back with this one. All right, how you doing, Dave? You all right? You set the world's record for running up and down the hallway. All right. Chair will entertain a motion, Town Board, Town of Windsor, after considering all the information presented to it, hereby declare the proposed local law entitled the local law to repeal and rescind local law number 5 of the Town Code, Town of Windsor, entitled towing, including any or all amendments thereto, will not have a significant impact on the environment, and thus authorize the supervisor to execute Part 3 of the SEAF, adopt a negative declaration, hereby adopt the attached proposed local law, a local law to repeal and rescind local law number 5, 2000, Town Code, Town of Windsor, entitled towing hereto, including any and all amendments in accordance with resolution attached hereto. Motion.
Move.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Moreau,
Yes.
Councilman Bedetti,
Yes.
Councilwoman Santiago,
Yes.
Supervisor Myers.
Yes. Well, it didn't take quite as long to get it together, but it took a little while to get it done. Okay, at this point, we'll have another public comment, and this is on just agenda items. Anybody has any comments they want to make on agenda items? We'll listen to the comments and then we'll move forward. So we'll hold on a minute, see if anybody's interested in commenting on agenda items. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna move along here. Chair will entertain a motion, Town Board, Town of Windsor, approve the minutes of the Town Board meeting held on January 6, 2021, as per copies posted on the Town Clerk's bulletin board in the Town Hall, and same distributed to each of the Town Board members. Roll call.
Move. Oh,
Second.
Motion. Roll call, I'm sorry. Roll call.
Councilman Moreau,
Yes.
Councilman Bedetti,
Yes.
Councilwoman Santiago,
yes.
Supervisor Myers.
Yes, okay. Chair will entertain a motion, Town Board, Town of Windsor, approve the appropriation of up to $230,000 from the garbage fund as a source funding for acquisition of one garbage truck, including cab, chassis, packer, undercoating to be purchased via New York State contract or piggyback contract and financed by a lease purchase agreement utilizing the above reference appropriation. Motion?
Move.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilman Moreau,
Yes.
Councilman Bedetti,
Yes.
Councilwoman Santiago,
Yes.
Supervisor Myers.
Yes. Okay, this is a new garbage truck that we are purchasing for our Superintendent Anthony Feo. It's a lease purchase, should be over 7 years, and the cost of probably, we estimate $30,000 to $35,000 a year. At the end of the 7 years, we will own it. It'll be a while getting here because these things take a while to get put together and sent to us. So some of our trucks up there are in pretty rough shape, and they do a good job up there. So we need to give them the equipment to do their job. Chair will entertain a motion, Town Board, Town of Windsor hereby request pursuant to section 1622-2 of the New York State Vehicle Traffic Law, the New York State Department of Transportation establish an area speed limit of 30 miles per hour upon roadways owned by the Town of New Windsor located west of the New York State Thruway, and to the Orange County Commissioner of Public Works concur in the town's request that the Town Board authorize the Town Clerk to execute the attached form, which is a TE10AA, which shall be forwarded to by the Town Attorney together with the certified copy of this resolution and a copy to the Mesa Consulting Speed Survey to Orange County Commissioner of Public Works, asking that he concur with this request, execute the Form TE10AA, and forward same to the New York State Department of Transportation for determination in accordance with the resolution. Motion?
Move.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Moreau,
Yes.
Councilman Bedetti,
Yes.
Councilwoman Santiago,
Yes.
Supervisor Myers.
Yes, this is a process. So we've had the study done on the speed limits on the western end. The roads were Bethlehem Road, Bull Road, Lake Road, Moores Hill, Mount Airy, Shore, South Jackson Road, Tolman, Beatty, Station Road, Riley Road, and Twin Arch Road. So we have a recommendation from the consultant, a recommendation from the police chief and his staff, and now it has to go to the county. The county then has to concur, and then they send the paperwork to the state, and then they have to concur. So this is a process, but at least we are now on our way. So receive and file. Hearing no objection, Town Board, Town of Windsor, receive and file the continuation certificate of permit bond number S433014 submitted by Nanini Callahan Excavating Incorporated in the amount of $20,000 effective for the period October 9, 2020 to October 9, 2021. The purpose of the bond is to secure a permit from the town of the Windsor to perform street openings within the town, same be referred to the town attorney and town highway superintendent. This is just Nanini Callahan keeping a bond on file, so I don't have to put one every time they need to do a road opening. Another receive and file. Hearing no objection, Town Board, Town of Windsor, receive and file the attached notice of claim in the matter of the New York City Water Board versus the Town of New Windsor and the Town of New Windsor Consolidated Water District for past due charges totaling $380,617.79. This is a result of, we have not been paying the city of New York for the water usage because we think that someone else is responsible for some of our problems, and this is just them putting us on notice that there may be a notice of claim against us, and we'll see where this goes. Okay, the next item on the agenda is kind of an open public meeting, and this is regarding this draft master plan, comprehensive master plan that we have put together. This is not an official public hearing. It's just, we'll be having this, so we have from Lankin Tully, the planner that we have hired in this, Kristen O'Donnell. She's going to make a little presentation, and then there'll be a public hearing this later. So, Kristen, are you with us and okay to go? You need to mute. You're not muted? Tristan, we're having trouble hearing you. All right, let's see what happens. You know if she can hear me? Okay.
Danielle, is there a call-in feature?
Yeah, Kristen, if you have a cell phone, dial into the meeting and use that as your speaker to talk. So keep your webcam going though.
Danielle, can you give her the number to call in?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Kristen, I'm gonna send it in chat to you through Webex here.
Danielle, did you send her that number yet?
I did, Kristen.
Yeah, let's.
Can you give it to me and I'll just tell her what it is?
Sure, it's 1-510-338-9438.
9438.
Correct. And then the access code is 182-054-8186.
8186.
Correct.
Yes.
Kristen? Can you hear me, Kristen? Can you call in on the following telephone number? It's 1-510 338 9438.
I think she sees Danielle's message
Yeah, I
now.
think so. I see.
That should work.
Got it?
Yep, got it.
Got her.
Kristen,
But now you're going to echo.
you get a little louder?
Yes.
Yes, sir. The phone closer to her to be a little bit louder.
Move the phone a little closer to you, be a little louder.
No, I mean, I can hear you fine. My phone is attached to the wall.
Okay, so you're on.
Okay. So I don't want to take up too much of your time. I don't want to belabor a lot of these points because most of you were involved in the comprehensive plan from the early stages. But I will just go through the plan briefly to go over for anyone member of the public or just as kind of a summary for the board. So we'll start with, so chapter 1 is basically an overview. I don't think we'll have to go through a lot of that. It's basically, it is expanded a little bit from the 2009 comprehensive plan, but essentially it's the same information. Population, housing, and residential development is chapter 2. That information has fully been updated since the 2009 plan. All new census data from the U.S. Census and the 2019 American Community Surveys. I don't think that anyone wants me to go through a lot of this data, but please feel free to yell if you do want me to go through the data. So this has just been updated with all of the, like I said, census data and housing data as you go through the plan. This is obviously very important to inform a lot of your planning decisions with respect to housing, with respect to population, with respect to planning for all types of for recreational needs and so on and so forth. We do go through the zoning, the residential zoning that you have, and go through, we went through a residential build-out analysis by looking at land use codes that were available from Orange County GIS. We went through each of those codes and went through to look at the amount of vacant land. As you may imagine, over the last 8 to 10 years, a lot of the town has been either built out or is committed and approved to be built out. So there's not a significant amount. There's certainly not any big tracts of land that are not spoken for, but there is there are several parcels. I mean, by several, I mean I lost the number now. There are parcels that are available for residential development, but there's nothing significant remaining. So the recommendations related to housing, we'll get into zoning towards the end of the plan with our land use and zoning, but there are some zoning changes that are recommended. For the most part, these recommendations related to housing are similar to what they were in 2009. For residential areas to retain their existing housing densities, to establish residential buffers, which are largely done at the planning board level. And we get into a little bit of the cluster developments. The committee really wanted to tighten that language up to make sure that those were not, the lots weren't able to be excessively small, and so that we were keeping the neighborhoods that were being developed consistent with the overall character of the housing that was around them. And to make sure that senior citizen housing was located next to, in walkable areas, next to public transportation, near services, and in the higher residential zones so that they have public water and sewer. Are there any questions on housing before I move on to chapter 3?
Oh, we're good.
Okay. Chapter 3 is economic development. Obviously, since 2009, the economic development in the town has expanded quite a bit with the expansion of Stewart Airport. And so we do discuss that, kind of the more recent, this chapter has been updated to include the expansion to Stewart Airport with respect to both passenger traffic and cargo. We updated the employment information with the available information from the census. The recommendations, of course, are mainly related, probably the primary recommendation is related to airport development, and for the airport to kind of be the main focus of the heart of the economic development of the town, to allow the town to expand the zoning in that area, to allow for a broader range of uses, to allow a lot of flexibility in development there, to allow and to encourage the development in that area in and around the airport as much as possible. Other major economic development recommendations were related to some other zones, limiting heavy industrial zones by the airport, to limiting heavy industrial uses around the airport to make sure that we're not deterring economic development over there. Kind of limiting the expansion of commercial and corporate development on 207 to existing areas, including around Five Corners, where we already have a lot of development, and the expansion of agribusinesses and agricultural related uses, and to try to expand that as much as possible to allow flexibility and to allow any existing agricultural uses to be able to do anything to try to keep themselves viable, including kind of some of the newer uses that are emerging, like agribusinesses, tasting facilities, possibly catered events, anything like that, just to help the agribusinesses stay on as a sustainable use. The design guidelines that were recommended were fairly general and mostly implemented by the planning board. That's design, we talked about design in the neighborhood commercial areas and some of the things at the planning board level that they could require to make sure that developments are going to respect the area around them. They're going to look nice, to encourage further economic development, to encourage people to shop local and use our local businesses. Are there any comments on Chapter 3 before we move on?
No, go ahead.
All right, Chapter 4 is natural resources. The natural resources did not need quite as much updating as some of the other chapters did. Of course, a lot of these, the existing conditions have remained the same. We did kind of expand a little bit on some of the lakes and streams, some of the resources that you have. I tried to expand just to kind of go through and document the value that they serve to the town. But for the most part, obviously these areas are established and they've been the primary open space and natural resource areas in the town for quite a while. So I probably don't need to explain that to anyone. The recommendations related to natural resources are, of course, protection of groundwater through aquifer protection regulations, protection and potentially adopting some watershed overlay zones. We do have the town regulations now, but we've considered strengthening those. To protect our water resources, again, our drinking water resources, we have to work obviously with the City of Newburgh and the Town of Newburgh where we need to, but really want to make sure that we put a lot of focus on protecting the groundwater resources and any resources, any surface water that feeds that groundwater and watershed. Are there any questions on natural resources before we move on?
No, go ahead.
We're going to move into transportation, which is Chapter 5. Again, not a ton of updating in this section since the 2009 plan. Obviously, the transportation corridors and the linkages are the same as they were in 2009. But there have been some improvements that were recommended in the 2009 plan have been implemented. Basically, this chapter still focuses on pedestrian safety with the implementation of crosswalks and sidewalks in more areas. Of course, we understand that the town is fairly hamstrung with respect to the majority of its major roads being state and county roads. But there's always, the ability of the town to kind of be a squeaky wheel in either your assemblyman or your other elected officials' ears to try to get a lot of these upgrades done along your major transportation corridors. So this kind of goes through the transportation network, which I think everybody understands. The transit routes have been updated. Of course, they're not really running right now. We talk a little bit more about Stewart Airport and its cargo, which we have already covered. We updated the accident information that was provided by the town police department. And the recommendations basically, again, they focus around public safety. They what the town can do with respect to public transportation, getting the dial-a-bus service back up and running when we can, and other traffic calming in the town. that's something I do wanted to mention, with respect to traffic calming. On page 29, there are a few bulleted areas where, the committee had pointed out that they thought that crosswalks and additional traffic calming and safety measures were a good idea, but, if anyone else on the town board, you don't have to have this idea right now, but if anyone else on the town board has any more suggestions, I think that that would be a good place if we want to supplement. If anyone has any thoughts, you know, you can either email Dave or myself and we can get those in there, but that's something that, is kind of a little bit open at the moment. All right, anything else on transportation? I'm going to move to chapter 6.
No, go ahead.
Okay, chapter 6 is parks, recreation, and historic preservation. This has been updated based on the park resources that the town has and the newly expanded park resources that you have built since the 2009 plan. So that has all been updated. The state park is fairly the same, and the school and the private facilities are essentially the same as they were in 2009. So I won't bore you with those. I did coordinate with the town historian to update the list of historic structures. Not only the list of historic, but also the list of local homes of distinction and other structures that are eligible for listing. That's all been updated with the town historian. We've updated the plan to include the reference to the Purple Heart Museum. The recommendations in parks are to explore opportunities for emerging recreational needs, including basically new amenities at existing parks. And the committee felt fairly strongly that the town didn't need additional parkland and shouldn't seek to acquire new land itself, but that the amenities within the parks over the years could be updated and should continue to be reviewed. Obviously, additional access to the Hudson River is always great. That is one of the town's great assets. That should always be kind of on the forefront of what the town wants to do with respect to recreation. In historic preservation, I think that these recommendations are fairly similar to what they were in 2009. You are kind of, again, you're hamstrung with respect to privately owned properties, but of course, just to, for the town to provide the information to property owners to know what they have available to them with respect to grants or other programs to be able to maintain their property, their historic house, if they wish to do so. And with respect to things that the planning board can do to encourage properties as they become developed to respect the nature of any historic properties or historic corridors that are in the immediate vicinity. All right, moving on to utilities. Utilities, we had a lot to update. A lot has happened since 2009, and of course, some of the concerns that the town has had in more recent times. This section has been updated to include all of that. This has been coordinated with the town attorney and the town engineer to go over all of the infrastructure that exists and where the town is with upgrades to these systems. And the recommendations with respect to utilities, of course, focus on the maintenance of these systems, the maintenance of the town's water system, and upgrades to those systems where necessary, and where we're working to make changes, working on I&I, working on improvements to the new sewer plant, and a limitation on new or expanded water districts and sewer districts without those improvements completed.
Huh?
All right, agriculture is chapter 8. As you might imagine, there's not a lot of updates or revisions to this chapter since 2009, but we have updated the information where necessary. The recommendations, as I kind of touched on in economic development, kind of focus on just allowing agricultural properties to try to be as lucrative as possible and kind of stay up with the times in terms of what they can do on their properties, how they can use it to try to to try to be viable and maintain as much use of their property as they can. Land use is chapter 9. All the land use and zoning has been updated since the 2009 plan with respect to the acreage dedicated to all the various uses. And the minimum lot areas for the different zones has been updated and the purpose. Go right to the recommendations of planning and zoning. This is kind of the meat of the plan. So the first recommendation with respect to zoning is modifications to bulk tables to allow the airport zone to increase flexibility, and also for the airport zone to allow like a campus-like development, and that is reducing setbacks, interior setbacks, to kind of create a campus-like setting, and while increasing or maintaining the setbacks around the exterior of those properties to maintain buffers around the outside. Again, kind of creating that campus-like setting. Allowing flexibility with respect to parking, allowing flexibility with respect to all of the uses that are going to be permitted to try to encourage medical offices, eating and drinking places, warehousing, any of those things that would possibly coordinate with the airport, hotels, things that would coordinate generally with tourism-based uses like the airport, and coordinate with the other operations that are going on there currently. The other changes that were recommended were some residential zoning changes. They are enumerated. I won't go through all of them specifically, but they are enumerated at the end of chapter 9, and that's changing a few of the areas of one area of R3 specifically, which is actually the parcels are sliced in half, to return them to R1. Those properties have environmentally sensitive features on them. And then there's a few areas of R5 that are going to be rezoned to R4. Again, as we recommended in the residential section, we want to work to reduce residential zoning in certain areas to try to, maintain our utility systems and not overburden them, and also to maintain the character of the surrounding areas. The final recommendation was to review the purposes of the zone, and that was kind of just to make sure that the zoning code is consistent with the zones that are existing at this time. So those are the major recommendations. They are in table form at the very end if it's easier as you're going through it as a board member or any member of the public as they go through it. The table form is kind of probably the most user-friendly if you want to go through it that way. In terms of implementation, well, maybe I'll wait on implementation. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, points of discussion before I go into our next steps?
Now go ahead.
All right, our next steps for implementation. Most importantly, we need to implement the seeker process. Comprehensive plans and zoning changes are subject to seeker review. We prepared the Part 1 EAF for the board. I believe you have a copy of it this evening. The town board is the only agency that can be lead agency under seeker, so you do not need to circulate a notice for that. But you can declare yourself as lead agency under seeker and begin your review. I'm going to prepare, our next step is going to be prepare an expanded Part 3. That'll be a narrative document that goes along with that Part 1 that you have and explains, it's going to go through each of the recommendations, and it's going to explain the potential impacts of each of those items and kind of provide a little bit of rationale what the committee's thinking was there, and offer any mitigations that might be necessary. So that will be provided to you before your public hearing in March. That will be available. I think that's really it from my end. I don't want to bore you to death with all of the details.
Okay, let me, Kristen, thanks a lot. Listen, tonight, this was a kind of a introduction of this it's a draft comprehensive plan. It's mostly that the town board would hear what was going on, but I know that they have all read this because I have read it. And it was a struggle for me because I'm usually good at about 2 pages. This is about 100. But I know that the town board members have read this and are familiar with it. There's actually 62 recommendations in here. Some are for immediate, some are for short term, some are for long term. So those are the things that we as a board will have to kind of grapple with and kind of make a list and see where we're going. But we are going to have a public hearing on this matter on March 10th at 7 p.m. And the reason we can't have it at our regular town board meeting, because we needed a 30-day period to advertise this, which we have done through Allegra's office, the town clerk. This draft comprehensive master plan is on the website. So if people want to go look at it and spend some time kind of looking at it, and then we have the public hearing, we'd certainly be happy to hear anybody's comments as to what they like or don't like, and then the board will kind of take that under consideration. But this has been a kind of long process, and we've involved a lot of people in it. There was a committee, and the committee was comprised of Jerry Arginio, who's our planning board chairman, Stephen Bedetti, town councilman, a resident, Ron Eaton, another resident, Dominic Lucera, Steve Moreau, town councilman, another resident, Richard Oster. We had Dave Zagon, our town attorney, Jennifer Gallagher, our town building inspector, John McDonald, our chief information technology officer, and Michael Weeks. So we've had a lot of input along the way with Christian O'Donnell from Lankin Tully. So it's out there now, and we will hold that public hearing on March 10th, where we would expect that there would be some comments from the public. But if anybody wanted to say anything just now, that's fine. But as I said, we'll really be looking for some comments when you digest this whole thing, because it's really, and it been a good job done with putting this together. And I appreciate the work by those folks that I just mentioned, because they were doing the yeoman's work on this. And I just actually read the whole thing this past weekend, and there was a lot of work went into this, and I appreciate everybody's efforts on that. So does anybody have any comments? But keeping in mind that we'll have a public hearing March 10th.
So, Mr. Supervisor, I just wanted to mention that that John McDonald also created an email address. So if anyone does have any comments, or any members of the public have any comments, there's an email address that they can be submitted to.
Okay.
And I'll make sure to review all those comments and respond to them individually.
All right, great. Yeah, you're right. I was remiss for not mentioning that. Yeah, so we really are looking for some input into this, because we'd like to hear from the residents. I think we've been doing our job by putting this together. Now I think people need to kind of take a look at it and see what they think about it, and that'll be up to the board how we go. So that being said, I'm going to move along. Chair Lieutenant Motion Town Board, Town of Windsor, hereby introduce the attached proposed draft update to the comprehensive plan for public review and comment. Authorize the supervisor to execute Annex Part 1 full environmental assessment form pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Review and consider the criteria for determining whether or not the comprehensive plan will have a significant adverse impact on the environment, and cause to be prepared. Parts 2, 3 of the FEAF. Direct to the town clerk to immediately post on the town's Windsor website for public review and comment, and complete copy of the proposed comprehensive plan. Circulate the proposed comprehensive plan pursuant to the law, and hereby set a public hearing on the proposed draft update to the comprehensive plan to be held at a special town board meeting at 7 p.m. on March 10th, 2021 at the Town Hall, 555 Union Avenue, Windsor, New York, and direct a notice of the public hearing to be required by law, all in accordance with the resolution annexed to. Motion?
Move.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Moreau,
Yes.
Councilman Bedetti,
Yes.
Councilwoman Santiago,
Yes.
Supervisor Myers.
Yes, Chair Lieutenant Motion Town Board, Town of Windsor, introduce the attached proposed local law to amendment Chapter 300 of the Town Code of Town of Windsor, which is a zoning code, and amend the zoning map, assume lead agency, and authorize the supervisor to execute the attached full environmental assessment form pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, direct the proposed local law to be circulated pursuant to law, call a public hearing to be held on this at a special town board meeting on 7 p.m. on March 10th, 2021 at the Town Hall, 555 Union Avenue, Windsor, New York, and direct the notice of the public hearing to be given as required by law and the draft local law be posted immediately by the town clerk on the Town of New Windsor website for public review and comment prior to the aforementioned public hearing regarding same, all in accordance with the annex resolution. Motion.
Move.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Moreau,
Yes.
Councilman Madeti,
Yes.
Councilwoman Santiago,
Yes.
Supervisor Myers.
Yes, I would be remiss in not mentioning that our town historian, Glenn Marshall, who's a retired New Windsor police officer, his efforts in putting this together, and I appreciate Glenn always stepping up for the town. Chair will entertain a motion, Town Board, Town of Windsor approve the appropriation of up to $190,000 from the general fund as a source funding for the acquisition of 5 police vehicles, inclusive of equipment, accessories, and installation to be purchased via New York contract or piggyback contract and financed by lease purchase agreement utilizing the above reference appropriation. Motion?
Move.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Moreau,
Yes.
Councilman Madeti,
Yes.
Councilwoman Santiago,
Yes.
Supervisor Myers.
Yes, this is, the town board has kind of authorized the police department to purchase 5 new vehicles. We just bought them 2 used vehicles this year that are in use now. One for the new K-9 unit and one for patrol. Some of our police cars were having some dangerously high mileage, 137,000, 117,000. So these cars will be a lease purchase. It'll be over 4 or 5 years. The first year, we're going to use the money that we're selling some old cars that we have here, and we're probably going to take in about 35,000 on that. And then for the next 4 years, we'll probably be in the area of 40,000. Then we will own these cars. But these cars go 24/7, so it doesn't take long to get a lot of mileage on them. And we want to give our police department the necessary equipment they need to do the job that we asked them to do. Chair, the motion, Town Board, Town of Windsor authorize the reduction of the performance bond for public improvements in the Wakefield Major Subdivision, Phase 2, Planning Board 15-1, from $295,122.30 to $150,484.80, as recommended by McGoey Hauser Retzel Consulting Engineers by correspondence dated 22 January 2021, Annex Tier 2. Motion.
Move.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Moreau,
Yes.
Councilman Madeti,
Yes.
Councilwoman Santiago,
Yes.
Supervisor Myers.
Yes, this is self-explanatory, just reducing the bond for this subdivision. This is receive and file. Hearing no objection, Town Board, Town of receive and file the attached independent accountant's report on applying agreed upon procedures dated November 19, 2020, received from Nugent Housing SLPC, evaluating financial and accounting practices and procedures of the Town of the Windsor Justice Court as of December 31st, 2019. So this is an audit that was performed. I reviewed this. I sent it down to our 2 town justices for their action, and kind of routine matter, but they're actually supervised by the New York State Court Administration, and we really don't have much authority over them. But they both do a good job, and I'm sure that they'll be responding to these issues. Hearing no objection, Town Board, Town of Windsor receive and file the attached fully executed engagement letter authorizing Nugent Housing Etzel to provide auditing and accounting services to the Town of Windsor for the year 2021. So this is the company that we hired to do the auditing, and it's not cheap. It's like $32,000 for them to do this, but we need to make sure that we are doing everything according to Hoyle, which I have a lot of faith and trust in our controller's office and Jack Finnegan and Doreen Casey. Hearing no objection, Town Board, Town of Windsor receive and file the attached fully executed agreement between the Town of Windsor and Munisat Services Incorporated for provision of municipal advisory services to the Town of Windsor for the year 2021. We did this motion last month. This has to do with our investments. Hearing no objection, Town Board, Town of Windsor receive and file fully executed agreement dated December 2020 between the Town of New Windsor and the Riverkeeper for permission to remove a Walsh Road dam on the Crusade Bridge. Okay, this was something that they sent us a request. I had the town attorney, Dave Sagan, looked at it. He thought it looked fine, so we went ahead and signed it, and they're removing that dam over there. Another receiving file. Hearing no objection, Town Board, Town of Windsor receiving file, a fully executed intermunicipal agreement dated December 7, 2020, between the Town of Windsor and the Village of Chester for the purpose of utilizing the Town of Windsor Information Technology Officers to assist the Village of Chester Police Department on an as-need basis in the establishment, configuration, maintenance, and oversight of the Village of Chester Police Department computers, servers, peripherals, network infrastructure, and hardware, geographical information services. I think we get about $100 an hour when we go out and we do this for these different municipalities and police departments. Another receiving file. Hearing no objection, Town Board, Town of Windsor receiving file with the town clerk, the attached emergency action plan update of the Beaver Dam Lake, New York State DEC Dam ID number 195-0502, Federal Dam ID number 00619, dated November 2020. This is just some updates that were submitted to us by the Beaver Dam, and we'll adjust our files accordingly. Another receiving file. Hearing no objection, Town Board, Town of Windsor receiving file with the town clerk, the attached monthly reports for the following departments: Justice Calderon, Justice Myers, Police Department, Building Department, Recreation Department, Tax Receivers, Utility Report, Tax Receivers, Monthly Tax Statement, the Town Clerk, and the New Windsor Emergency Medical Services. Once again, I just looked at that police report. 5 DWIs last month, so they're still driving around intoxicated on our roads. And the Recreation Department, I'd just like to acknowledge the work they did, taking the calls from people who were trying to get on the list that we're establishing for the vaccines if we could ever get them. We're up around close to 2,000 now. I told them today that we'll put something out tomorrow. We're just not going to take any more right now till we see if we can possibly get any of these things. We're ready to go. All we need to do is get them. So we've had some help from Senator Scoofus's office, and we'll see how that goes. But it seems to be letting some more of these vaccines go now. So hopefully they get this right. But this has been a disaster from the get-go. Okay, I think that's the end. Okay, so we'll have a public forum here. Anybody want to comment? But before I open up to the public, I'll ask any of the board members if there's anything that they would like to say before we ask the public to chime in if they have anything.
Or just thanks to all,
One at a time.
I'm sorry. No,
No, go
ladies
ahead,
first.
Stephen.
No, ladies
No,
first.
go ahead. No, I just, I too, I'm sure Stephen is going to say that he wants to thank I take that back. I don't know what you're going to say. I'm going to say thank you to everyone who participated in the comprehensive plan update. One, two, thank you to everyone, to our highway department and everyone else who's been out there cleaning and taking care of our residents. And three, I'd really like to say thank you for whoever has been working on putting up the motions and so forth and updating the website to ensure that our documents on our agenda items are up to date and more detailed. Thank you.
You knew Stephen was going to say all that?
No, some of it, I think.
Stephen.
Sylvia, get out of my head. No, I just wanted to thank all the employees, everybody that was involved in this storm the last couple of days. I was out there myself, and they did a very nice job.
Yeah, no, I agree. I had that on my notes too. Yeah, it's struggle, not only the highway department, but our building and grounds guys too. They do a lot of work at our facilities, and they were going pretty hard the whole time. This was a vicious storm, and kudos to everybody who got involved there. Just as a side from me, the body cams for the police department started today. We're kind of doing a little trial with them now. We have the officers out there. We had our IT department, Patrick Mangan, with the police chief today. And hopefully we'll have these things up and running in the very near future. And it's going to be good transparency for us, and it will eliminate a lot of he said, she said issues that pop up. And I'm glad that we got this done. And I mentioned at the workshop the different companies and people who donated to this project and kind of took a little bit of the weight off the town. It was 36,600. Right now we have about 24,000 in, and I know there's another big donation coming. So I'm very happy that we have that because it's good for the public and it's good for the police. That being said, we'll open it up to the public. Any comments on anything? You got anybody?
No.
No? All right. Before we close, Stephen Dedetti's going to put you on a timer, Dave. Run down to your office and run back, and we want to see how long it really takes you. You went above and beyond tonight, David. That's all I can say. Good
I
job.
timed it. George,
All the
I just wanna
time,
say,
Dave.
I timed it.
Yeah.
I timed it, and I got a funny feeling Dave wasn't in this alone. He had to have help.
Okay. I thought that was a little quick myself.
Yeah, there's no way he made it all the way down there and back.
Okay. Maybe you were just pulling a fast one on me. David, were you pulling a fast one on me? I don't like to get too confused here. I'm
Might
confused.
have some help the second go round.
So don't worry, we'll get even with you. All right, Chair will entertain a motion, Town Board, Town of Windsor, adjourn the Town Board Town Board meeting at 7:55 PM. Motion?
Move.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Moreau,
Yes.
Councilman Bedetti,
Yes.
Councilwoman Santiago,
Yes.
Supervisor Myers.
Mercifully, yes. Okay, everybody, thank you very much. We'll see you on the rebound.